Hi, Jen here. Welcome to my apartment. As you can see from some boxes behind me, I'm still moving in. Didn't time that right with the start of a new class, but so far I think I'm doing all right. And I'm excited about everything that we're learning. And every time I read something, I'm walking away with a new bit of information or skill that I can try and exercise in my interactions. And we all know that communication happens every day all around us, so there's no excuse for not practicing anything new that we come across. Um, as for what we're talking about right now with Baldwin text, before even getting to that, I'd not really thought much about communication and identity until reading chapter 2 in Bridges Not Walls. The concept of how we communicate either through learning from our environment or through our own abilities and how that truly helps to define our identities is fascinating to me. I'd never really thought about how I'm communicating to you in a way that defines who I am, and it's very profound to me. And now I find myself listening to and interacting with people with this newfound communication identity knowledge, as I'm coining the phrase. Um, but Baldwin's reading really took this concept of identity through communication to a deeper level for me. As I was reading about Baldwin's history, I thought of my own identity and how it has been shaped. And at one point in my life, I felt I was stuck in a stereotype of a young gay woman. So I played the sports, all the sports, especially softball. Only had women friends, and I only hung out at the gay bars. But as I've gotten older and I've evolved a little bit over time, my identity is no longer steeped in my sexuality, and I don't feel like I have to live up to any stereotypes. I did not have to go as far as Baldwin in order to realize my true identity, which is always and continuously evolving. But I did finally decide that the qualities that were important to me for my core identity is being a good person, a loyal friend and partner, being honest, reliable, and adventuresome. And who I partner with and where I go for drinks and who my friends are don't need to be based on any facts other than who I love and where I can get a good glass of Guinness and who makes me laugh and think. And Baldwin's concept of place, being critical to our identity making, encourages me to think about where my places have been and how many times have I left home. I've held many identities in my life, and I will continue to hold many more. And as our reading states, Baldwin didn't finally figure out his identity and who he was until he was in Paris, and he left the US completely, and it wasn't until he was there that he was treated like an American, and his this color of his skin and his sexuality no longer defined who he was. It was his nationality that everyone identified him with, and that was a different concept for him than he'd ever had before. And I would say that these places that he talks about are also tied to circumstances. The places or circumstances in which I was raised are different than yours and our professors and my supervisor, my partner, my mother, and so on. Does this make my identity foreign and leave me feeling alone? At times, yeah, I think we all kind of feel like no one can understand our story and where we're coming from. And but I think what's important about Baldwin's reading is that he so eloquently shared about his life and his thoughts, and through that we can see that we all have a story that shapes us, and knowing that we all have a story is kind of comforting, because then we're not so alone, knowing that everybody has a history that they have had that's come to define them and they've had to fight against or accept or whatever, whatever it meant to them. So it's through this understanding presented by Baldwin that we all have a place, a story, a history that's created us, and I can begin to communicate with those around me differently. I need to be present in each interaction and aware of the stereotypes I might be applying, aware of the places that I am putting the individual in front of me without their input. Just as I don't want others to make assumptions about my identity, I need to strive to not assume that I know another's story and their identity without actually engaging and listening to them. And the process of creating our identities and then being able to present them to others through communication is performed best without putting people in boxes or labeling ourselves or anyone else. Um, the imagery that comes to mind for me when talking about an interaction between myself and someone else is giving myself and every person I interact with a fresh canvas upon which they can paint. And they can paint in any color they want, with any type of brush they want, using any type of stroke that they want. It's not for me to decide what their identity is in that interaction, and the same for them and me. And I should be able to decide my identity in that interaction. And so keeping this knowledge in mind will help me communicate better and hopefully allow others to be themselves, whatever identity they choose in that moment. And I think something that is really significant about Baldwin's readings, and as I finish up here, is this whole concept of an ever evolving identity. And towards the end of the piece, they talk about creating a new words and new meanings, and what does it mean for equality. And I think for that, it kind of just comes back down to, let's just not label things. Let's just let things be and not put people in boxes. And if we need to make a word that means everyone, then let's create that word and call it good. And I found it very interesting. So I'm hopefully you were able to take away as much from this reading as I was, and look forward to all of your comments as we continue through this course. Thanks. Have a good evening.